Hey, my friend, how's it going with you today? How's it growing and flowing with you today? Much love. And I really just feel privileged in this moment right now, just continuing to bring this information that's also raising my vibration as I'm reading it and having this conversation with you yourself who are viewing. So in this time that we are becoming even more aligned and even more inclined to shine, you know? It's a wonderful time for the mind. And a wonderful time to find more as we explore this beautiful book from Maor. And if you want to take a look at the first chapters, go ahead and head back in the playlist. It's called Pranic Pages, as we dive into the wisdom of the ages from one of today's modern sages. And thank you once again for taking this walk with me. The Pranic Living Group Initiation. I developed the Pranic Living Group Initiation in 2014 after gathering as much information as possible and witnessing the challenges most people face in adopting a breatharian lifestyle. The Pranic Living Group Initiation is the time it takes for the body to transform to become nourished by prana. Most initiations I teach take 10 days. Much can be said about the process, but I do not feel it is morally right to encourage anyone to go through the process without an experienced guide. Most people who enter the process do not have their mind set on completely eliminating food, although they can if they truly wish to. They are more likely to be keen to enhance their spirituality, their pranic intake, and their general life experience. Most who have gone through the process have cut back drastically on food and enjoyed the pranic living process togetherness. The primary goal of the process is to enhance your pranic intake and to reach an independent pranic state. Food reduction is one of the many valuable byproducts. 2 guides and a minimum of 2 helpers are present throughout the process who have themselves passed through the initiation. The major improvement here in comparison to other processes is that we focus on the success of the individual once he or she steps back into everyday life. This is because we have seen how many people face emotional difficulties or social challenges when they return to their everyday lives. We decided to prepare them well with additional support, tools, and further meetings. Another difference is the fact that the process is done in a group and not individually. It occurred to me, as a former guide of the 21-day process, that 21 days is extreme and not possible for most people, no matter what their commitment levels are. In response, I made a list of all the difficulties and came up with multiple solutions. The Pranic Living Group Initiation is an answer to those challenges. The secret lies in a combination of a short dry fast accompanied with special breathing and meditation exercises, which assist the physical body to completely cleanse its accumulated toxins and expands consciousness. And here we get back to meditation and respiration, right? Experience has shown that participants go through a shorter period of weight loss and physical weakness and get back to their normal strength much more quickly. Since all breatharian processes detox the body, we ask that participants eat raw food for a week before the process and do 1 day of water fasting about 4 or 5 days before we start. During the process itself, participants start by eating fruit for 1 day, then do 3.5-day dry fast, and for the rest of the time, drink small amounts of fresh diluted fruit juice. There are 2 mandatory activities, namely morning and afternoon breathing and meditation exercises. You might even call them breathercises. Between these activities, many optional added value lectures and workshops are offered on subjects such as learning how to manifest, achieving happiness, yoga, different art forms, Falun Gong, and more. And this is very reminiscent to me for having gone through Elitom's retreat several times. And my first initiation with him, that was all we did. You know, we had lectures and talks, we exercised, we walked, we worked with the energy, increased the flow, and we spent time in meditation as we continued to grow. After the process, we recommend at least 2 months of drinking fruit juice in small quantities. The process raises the individual to a higher frequency and causes pranic nutrition to jump up to between 60 and 70%. To complete the process, one must embrace a breatharian lifestyle for at least a few months. From what we have seen, one who passes through the first 2 to 3 months has made the consciousness leap, and thereafter usually chooses to eat about 20% of their former intake. Some, like myself, decide to take it to the extreme and do an entire year of minimal physical nutrition to enhance the experience. The process contains several long silence exercises. So finding silence or finding solace in your own solitude and silence. You know, a lot can be said when we get out of the head, you know. Reminding us of the connection we have to our higher selves and to our future and past selves. We offer a half-day karmic cleansing, which I uniquely developed. It involves a beautiful experience of self-remembrance, forgiveness, and gratitude that, when done in a group, amplifies the experience and connects us to self-love. It is often said that each day in the process brings a different experience, and therefore one cannot really know how it will all end. If you have had experience with other spiritual processes like darkroom therapy, Vipassana, which I did for 10 days, that was big, vision quest, or other types of long fasts, I can say that the Pranic Living Group initiation is a combination of all of them multiplied. It does not mean it is difficult, only that you jump into a deeper understanding and your normal knowledge download suddenly becomes clearer and more intuitive. During the process, the body undergoes various transformations depending on what stage you're at. Generally, one of the greatest and most important things we need to understand when we go into the process is that the spirit within truly guides us. In the Pranic book, Living on Light, Jasmuheen calls it the DOW, an acronym for the Divine One Within. But here, I tried to take a less spiritual approach and call it our intuition, or higher self. This is what guides us, motivates us, and sets out our path through life. It is always there, whispering words of wisdom and truth in our ears. We simply need to learn how to listen to it. If I had to summarize the initiation process into a single sentence, it would be: I do not require physical nutrition because I do not believe so any longer. This shift is the one which you enter into the process. Your belief in yourself and your ability to self-persuade, to auto-suggest, and to be a builder of your own reality is crucial to the success of your process. The power of faith combined with this simple phrase embraces and explains a whole world of challenges and strengths. The biggest mental challenge is to bypass habitual common sense. By having a strong faith in our abilities as co-creators of our bodies and our existence. I don't know why that sentence just did something to me. I don't know why, but sometimes you just get a little high off of the knowledge, right? These are the things they didn't teach us in college, you know? I'm reminded so many times where, you know, Elitam Elamid would read words on a page and, you know, he would just be like, this is good, ain't it? You know, he would just get into the spirit, you know, letting us hear it. And I didn't really understand at that moment why he was so in spirit. But now I realize that it's the same thing as to be inspired. You know, as you understand your brain is becoming rewired and different neurons and connections are beginning to fire, right? It can give you so much energy even when you've been tired. Just to understand, like, oh my gosh. Just realize that to be inspired is to be in spirit. And it multiplies when you let someone else hear it. So having a strong faith in our abilities, you know, bypassing the habitual common sense. I love it. To find your strengths, you know. This belief is reinforced by exercises and overcoming personal challenges which we experience before and during the process. My personal game is to have my logical mind set up to deal with challenges through different tips and tricks. But that is just me, and everyone has their own tools and understanding. Most breatharians are clearly more intuitive, right brain oriented, and do not necessarily come from a scientific world and perspective. I definitely would resonate with that. I don't really come from a scientific background, but I can see where they're coming from. And it allows me to be more aligned in my own mind when I take the time to even redefine, you know. During the Pranic Living Group initiation, participants attend different workshops that connect them with their inner mastery. One of them is a manifestation workshop where they learn how to reprogram their subconscious mind regarding the effects of placebo and social programming, and how to observe their own beliefs. Another workshop deals with understanding how to integrate the process into one's life, how to explain it to other people, and what to drink in the beginning and for how long. A very important note for readers is to understand that you cannot do the process by yourself. I know of many individuals who have tried and failed. Most of them succeeded in the required dry fast, but failed to integrate breatharianism into their lives and almost immediately went back to eating. Important knowledge needs to be transferred, and the meditation and breathing exercises are vital to the success of the process. Now, I would definitely say that, you know, to each their own. I can understand why he's saying, don't try this at home, right? Because there's a certain vibration within isolation when doing it alone. And there's also a wonderful lift and a wonderful shift when others are known. In the company of someone else, you can reshape your mental health. Being in someone's energy field, a lot more can be healed and even revealed. That's not to say that you couldn't just do it your way. That's not to say that you can't have your day. But it's only to say that sometimes it pays to be able to have a group, to be able to recoup so that your mind is not going in a loop. So there's much synergy to be had and much harmony to be glad when you're able to be amongst others. Things might not look that bad. So just take caution if you're trying to do it by yourself. Realize there's no shame in having someone else to help. Phases. The Pranic Living Group initiation is generally divided into 4 time periods, starting with the highest degree of difficulty, gradually becoming easier. First week, this is the air fasting week, or we might even say the air feasting week, the chi increasing week, with no food or water intake. This is the most difficult period of adjustment for most. It is also the most intense period of your persistence being tested. Days 1 to 3, you simply feel that you have only stopped eating and drinking. There's nothing special about these days except for your expectations of the rest of the process. And as we see, sometimes expectations can often get in the way of a higher vibration. So for me, it was good to let expectations go, to let even more light and more energy flow. Days 4 to 7, a Breatharian transformation takes place. These are the most special days in the process. You are required to sit or lie still for a total duration of 6 hours a day. You have 3 sets of 2-hour intervals each time with an hour's break in between. During the intervals, you are not to move much. You can meditate, sleep, listen to quiet music. You are to stay in the same position during each interval and try to make the intervals at the same time each day. The point of these intervals is to allow bodily changes to take place. Most breatharians report different sensations during these times. Some have an experience similar to a Kundalini Awakening. There is plenty of time to experience these energy bursts and to deeply understand them within yourself. And I remember this just gave me flashbacks. I just went down memory lane when I started to gain and even further sustain and maintain that Kundalini Awakening. You know, it was amazing when I felt that energy raising. I had no idea that it could be blazing within me. It felt like electricity going up and down my spine, up and down each time. And it lasted for 1 day, you know? But it was after a long qigong and a long sit down with jasmine in my ears. And at that time, I really feel that I was able to release and let go of all of my fears, you know, things that I had held on for years. And it was so blissful that I even shed tears. I started crying. I was like, how did I not know that this was possible? That I could feel like this with no intercourse, no sexual experience with a partner. And yet I'm high, right? I didn't even know why. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't have planned it. But I definitely recommend, because it let me know there's no end. There's no end, my friend. It is normal to go into the process with a small amount of doubt about it and yourself. This is the time to release them. In the first 3 days, thoughts like, am I really ready to go through this process? Or perhaps my body is not strong enough. These will go through your mind even if you do not feel hungry or thirsty. We understand the mind games. Once the intervals begin, most likely in the middle of the third night, the sensation makes you deeply realize that a greater power than you can even understand is at work. Call it what you will. Guardian angels, light workers for God. Something is at work that one cannot explain in a normal way. You know, it reminds me of Albert Einstein, and how I remember there was a quotation where he talked about, I didn't arrive at the conclusion, or I didn't discover the laws of the universe by using my rational mind, right? And it behooves you to start to learn that there is much that one can acquire by being irrational, by being a little bit unreasonable, you know? Sometimes you have to let go of the left to come into being and even seeing the best, right? You can feel it all over your body and learn to trust it and to let it go. I call these 4 days the operation period, as in a medical operation, since this is the time when your engine is being upgraded so that you can be nourished by a higher percentage of prana. It is also the time when your 4 bodies, physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental, are being balanced so that you are able to absorb and use pranic nourishment. During this period, you do not take any water. Specifically speaking, and according to customary beliefs, during this time, you are supposed to die. However, you wake up on the 4th and 5th day and feel well. Do tell. After these 4 days are over, you meet your guide and have a small first glass of water in a ceremony to celebrate the end of the air water fast week. You are only allowed 1 glass of water per hour, as your body needs to relearn how to take it in. Around Breatharian circles, there is a story about a woman who did not listen to the simple rules of the process and had a liter of orange juice and died. That's crazy. Yeah, I remember when I was experimenting, you know, because while we're doing our own research, sometimes we can conduct our own experiments on the body, you know, and just defer to our notes. There was a long dry fast that I went through, a period of just being in the natural state, you know, pranic feasting. And afterwards, I just went out and I got some juice. And I remember, I think it was orange juice. And there was a moment after drinking this juice, it wasn't that much juice. It was just a bottle. And my whole body rejected this. It rejected the juice. Like I had gotten to a point, I guess, of detox where drinking this juice was like a retox. I was retoxifying my body when I had already been detoxifying my body. And my body was like, what are you doing? You know, we're drinking straight from the source. We're drinking juice, the nectar of the gods. You know, drinking this orange juice now, that seems odd, right? And my body straight up rejected it. I went outside. I was in New Jersey. And I went outside and I vomited. And what's crazy about this, I'll never forget this. After I vomited, I seen somebody over yonder, and I don't know if it was a homeless couple or something. There were people on the streets, but they were underneath in like a basement area doing something. I don't know. Who knows what they were doing down there? But the guy came up, he like pulled up his pants, he fixed his pants, and he took down his mask and he threw up. And he was throwing up all bits of food and solid matter and everything. He just threw it up, and then he just wiped his mouth, put his mask back on, and went down back into the basement. And in that moment, I was scratching my head. I looked, and for the life of me, I couldn't tell the difference. You know, whatever was poisoning his body and whatever was poisoning my body, it was like, there's no difference. And in that moment, I realized that though I had undergone a process, I was not superior to this individual, right? I realized, and it humbled me to let me know, toxicity is toxicity. Contamination is contamination. What's the difference between this orange juice that I just vomited and whatever food he vomited, right? The body is still saying it's unnecessary. The body is still saying we have evolved. The body is still saying we're all we need, right? So we don't need much, but we can come back more in touch. That was a big learning for me. This is a very important lesson, and another reason why people should listen to their guides and to the general rules. We are playing with extremes here. Now, of course, this is talking about extremes in society. But as they say, Breatharianism, Pranic living, in the yogic traditions or different scriptures, this is a minor power. So even though to someone else, what you're doing is small, the small still affects the all. So that's to say, it's still amazing to feel your energy raising in this way. And to understand that it's almost like learning how to crawl and learning how to walk again, right? Like a baby learning how to talk again. You're learning a new language. But it is the language that actually never left. And you can soar more to life instead of feeling like death. Second week. This week is considered the healing week, during which you recover and start drinking some fluids. The majority of people prefer water or tea, but you can also drink low concentrated juices with up to 20% fruit. You are still not to move much from your location, and if you have any residual energy, you need to conserve it for your body to heal from the operation that occurred in the first week. The healing process is already occurring, and you will start feeling very different. This is called the integration week, third week, where you experience continued recovery of physical strength. You start feeling the different changes and upgrades made to your body and spirit. Come on, let us hear it. You start feeling better and stronger as prana has been replacing your nourishment needs. But you still need to let your body adjust to a process that can take several months. At this time, you can start taking short walks according to your strength and your guide's recommendations. You can now drink a slightly higher concentration of juice. You can leave the location and even watch a feel-good movie once a day. Finding a breatharian guide. In Israel, there are currently 2 Breatharian guides, of which I am one. If you are in a country outside of Israel, there might be Breatharians who are willing to guide you. I know there are famous Breatharians who will probably charge more money, but I am sure you can find suitable people who have gone through the process to guide you. From my understanding, this subject is best known in India and Brazil, and in the West, mostly in France and Germany. Of course, you can always come to Israel for a few weeks and have me be your guide. Thanks, Ray. I've wanted to be a guide from the beginning. It felt right to pass on knowledge that can change people's lives for the better. Hopefully more people will decide to become guides. However, not every Breatharian is suitable to be a guide, and not every Breatharian wants to be one. Think about it like choosing to become a priest. Some people just want to have faith, while others want to teach. Your guide helps and assists you through your personal challenges, guiding you through the various exercises you need to do at the right time. They show you the door, but you have to walk through it, right? Your guide is in no way responsible for you. This reminds me of Morpheus from The Matrix, when he told Neo, as he was holding out the blue and the red pill. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You take the red pill and, you see how far the rabbit hole goes. And he's like, I only want to show you the truth, nothing more. I can only show you the door, but you're the one that has to walk through, right? It all depends on what you do. A person who decides to go through the Pranic Living Group initiation is making the decision on his or her own and by the trust of their inner guidance. You can also go through the process in Brazil for those who want a chance to get out of the country and meet a small community of Breatharians. Being surrounded by a small village of people who have gone through the process themselves can be a great help for someone starting out. And we do have friends in Brazil. Shout out to Luisa, and shout out to Elisa and Luisa from Brazil. Much love. Before a guide and a Breatharian apprentice start out on the process, they will conduct several meetings to make sure you are mentally prepared, that you are doing it for the right reasons, and to ensure affinity between you and your guide. A relationship of complete trust needs to be established. I would agree. One generally meets one's guide a few times before the process and once during the process and during the first water drinking ceremony, which takes place at sunset on the 7th day at the end of the air fasting week. This might change in the future if we open up Breatharian Academy. And I guess that's at the time of this writing. Each night, you and your guide will talk on the phone about your day, your emotions, difficulties, and tasks. Your guide will offer advice about that day and for the day to come. We take it one day at a time, as we should. In the first week, the emphasis is on talking every day. After that, it depends on both of you. From the second week on, deeply understanding that this process was up to me and my higher self, I asked my guide to communicate with me every second day. I found there is a great fulfillment in silence. You have chosen to undergo a life-changing process, so this is not a good time to have your ego issues. Truth and honesty about your sensations, your difficulties, and your challenges is imperative. There must be absolute trust between you. Your guide needs to be aware of every aspect of your process to be able to give you the best advice. To become a Breatharian is to follow your inner guidance, since you intuitively know many things. Going through the process gives you additional mental strength, since you are embarking on something so wonderful that is considered to be in the realm of the soul and light. It is an unselfish act that raises your frequency and that of humankind. So do not worry. You are in safe hands and carefully watched and loved. Finding a caretaker. A caretaker is a person who takes care of your physical requirements during the process. He or she is usually someone who comes on a daily basis and stays around for a short time, taking care of things like the laundry, cleaning up your environment, or making juice. Even though you can do these things by yourself, the job of the caretaker also enables you, the Breatharian apprentice, sounds like a Padawan, right? For the Jedi, the Force is with you, to constantly stay in the present moment and to preserve your energy, very important, and attention for the transformation process. Being in the moment is the key here, and the caretaker assists you. If this is the first time the caretaker is taking on this responsibility, he or she will receive a detailed briefing from the Breatharian guide. This job comes with the responsibility and is a role of great importance in the process. It is also an honorific role since the caretaker is part of the process and grows with you while observing the changes you go through from an objective point of view. It's good to have someone who has a view that is objective, you know. Every person and every process is so different that it is impossible to define the exact role of the caretaker. The caretaker is not the person with whom you discuss your process. The caretaker's job is simply to help you stay in the moment. If you need to share, you only do that with your guide. You can, of course, have small conversations with your caretaker, as they are your window to the outside world. Just remember that you are alone and that you go through the process alone. You do not need to know what goes on out there unless it is vitally important while you go through the transformation. And I'll definitely say that when I was in my first initiation with Elitam Elamin and Athena Starseed back in Sherman Oaks, California in 2020, the group that I was in and the synergy that we had, you know, I was glad that we were able to not be distracted and not be detracted by the different goings on in the outside world. You know, just letting the energy unfurl however it wanted, you know, and not being haunted by the news or the media or anything that was happening. It was really just in the moment. And I think that we were better for it, you know? We were better for having each other, sisters and brothers, in one place, you know, just in one room, really. All in sleeping bags, huddled together. But each day, feeling better and better, you know? It was awesome. So it's great to not be distracted so you are not detracted from your focus, which it takes a lot of focused energy to bring forth new manifestations, you know, as you're going through your own form of transformation. The caretaker will probably ask you simple questions like if you are missing anything or if there is anything special you need. They are the ones who will bring you water from the second week, books or missing art equipment. Don't feel bad if your caretaker does things for you that you know you can do by yourself. It is their job. Even if you are a clean freak or feel uncomfortable asking someone to do things for you, get over it. The issue at hand is not your independence. It is about staying in the moment as much as possible and allowing your body and spirit to make a large leap in your personal evolution and spiritual path. And I will definitely say, you know, there was a learning that came when I got around monks and nuns from Myanmar who really humbled me You know, they were so humble themselves, but they were opening up everything for me. They said, here's a mat, you know, here you can meditate here. Here, you can sleep over here. Here's the fridge. You can have something, whatever you want, you know. Take. They said, do freely. Lulu lale, do freely. That was their motto, you know, do freely. And all they wanted to do was serve, and just be in service. And I found so much purpose by watching them so in service. You know, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. So that let me know that I didn't have to do everything on my own, that I was really never alone, you know, and that love was felt because it was always shown. Preparing for the process. Similar to going traveling, one should prepare for the process, and these preparations take place on every level: mentally, physically, emotionally, and logistically. The preparation can take months or just a few weeks. The preparations are required to take place consciously and knowingly, and the process begins even before it formally begins. On day one, the process you already need to have been there mentally. On day one of the process, you already need to have been there mentally. This is why, for example, I did not feel hunger or even thirst on the first day. I was already mentally ready, having known my guide and good friend and knowing what to expect. It reminds me of Muhammad Ali, where he said about boxing, you know, that the fight is won or lost in the locker room, you know. Before he even gets out into the ring, dancing under those bright lights, you know, the fight is already won or it is lost. Because the fight is in the mind, you know. When preparing for your process, you must think about what types of issues you are going to face. You must imagine how you will deal with these issues and to consider whether they will be a problem. Your guide will be there to consult with during the process, but not to hold your hand. You are doing this by yourself. All right. Main guidelines. For individual preparation, in advance of the starting date, there are several guidelines. Most of them are in Living on Light by Jasmuheen, and I share some of them here. Be prepared to spend 3 weeks completely outside your normal world. No phone, no internet connectivity, no technology, no job, no social life. Sounds like Vipassana. These are the most important requirements for you to get the full benefit of the process. So, embracing subtraction, less distraction. Following these rules requires surrender and humbleness. Trying to cheat will only make things harder for you. So I guess if you cheat, you really just cheat yourself. Release all thoughts and projections from the outside world. Step into yourself and connect with your higher self. Do not worry about anyone else in the process. Your only concern is yourself. Mothers, fathers, children, family members, spouses, and pets are not allowed to visit or call. Once you've started the process, don't worry about business meetings, payment of bills, watering the garden, or pets. You need to have taken care of these things as if you have gone abroad and disconnected. It is best to find someone to take care of your personal affairs and to make sure that you have closed potential loopholes. So releasing all of control. Surrender and hand over control to your inner guidance. For the majority, this presents a challenge. Don't forget that wherever you think your challenge may be, that is where you will be challenged. There is no sexual activity of any type, including self-pleasuring. Wow. Yeah, definitely I would concur that that would be a hindrance. For in that mode of cleaning and cleansing, you want every bit of energy in your arsenal. You want all the tools and tricks at your disposal. So we're going to pause right there. And for the moment, take care. as we are ever becoming even more aware of the energy that we can draw upon within the very air. The energy that, ironically, has always been there. To be fair, as we are learning more self-care, it's a beautiful time to know it and a beautiful time to grow it. So thank you, Maor, who's also another poet, it seems. But we're finding out slowly, what it all means. So thank you, my friend, once again, for reading wisdom from the ages, going through all of life's stages. This has been Jerome Shaw with the Pranic Pages.